Hello and welcome to the Equals to Palace podcast. I'm Alfonso Greenbrook and today for 48 I'll be looking at a result against Man City by bringing you my match review, player rankings and my man of the match. As well as this, I'm also going to bring you an exclusive interview with Sam Allardyce, Martin Kelly and Jeffrey Slupp after the game. So let's begin. For the second season in a row, Palace suffered a heavy defeat against the slick Manchester City side at the Etihad Stadium on a disappointing afternoon for the Eagles. Early goals at the start of both halves by David Silva and Vincent Kompany were added to by Kevin De Bruyne, Raheem Sterling and Nicolas Otamendi, as Palace suffered their biggest defeat of the season against a hungry City outfit. However, they will now look forward to next weekend's visit of Hull City to Selhurst Park as a massive game that could seal their Premier League status for 2017-18 season, with their patched up defence battling against the odds to cope with their opponent's star-studded attack throughout the 90 minutes in Manchester. A good start was vital for Sam Allardyce's side, but those hopes were dashed after just 114 seconds via one of their nemesis in recent encounters against City. Leroy Sané started to move on the right and found Silva, who chipped the ball into the area where Raheem Sterling hooked it back from the byline. Martin Kelly attempted to head it clear but only found Silva, who swept home the game's first chance to score his fourth goal in his last 5 games against Palace. Pep Guardiola's men dominated the first 30 minutes and De Bruyne and Sané both fired into the stands, before the latter nearly grabbed a second when he dribbled 40 yards before letting fly just inside the box. And after Wayne Hennessy had pushed away his drive, Patrick Van Aanholt was well placed to clear when Sterling sniffed netting the rebound. Opportunities to advance into the final third were few and far between for the visitors up until that point, but they gradually grew into the game and enjoyed a flurry of chances within a 3-minute spell. Firstly, Wilfried Zaha saw a shot blocked by Kompany, and then Christian Benteke rose the highest to meet an Andros Townsend cross, but Willy Caballero made a fine reaction save to claw it away from his line, and a lurking Jason McArthur before Jason Punchin blazed over. Then, a deflected long ranger by Luka Milivojevic fell nicely into the path of Van Aanholt, but again he failed to hit the target as Allardyce's side enjoyed some pressure, and went into the break buoyed despite finding themselves a goal down. However, that all changed 3 minutes after the restart as City once again burst out all traps at the start of the half. After winning a corner, the initial danger was only cleared to Silva, who moved possession into De Bruyne, and he picked out an undetected Kompany who produced a fine first-time finish to beat Hennessy and give Palace a mountain to climb if they want to get anything out of their afternoon. City were purring when Kevin De Bruyne whipped a free kick over the wall and saw it fall off the top of the woodwork, and then he threaded in Sané to go one-on-one with Wayne Hennessy, but the Welshman made a good stop to deny the German, with De Bruyne screwing the rebound well wide. He looked destined to get on the scoresheet, and just before the hour mark that's exactly what happened, as the result was put beyond doubt. Silva flicked a header into Jesus, who laid the ball into the winger's path, as he carelessly put it into the bottom corner. Despite getting a hand to the attempt, Wayne Hennessy couldn't prevent it from finding the intended destination and making it 3-0. In an attempt to reduce the deficit, substitute Matthew Flamini sent Caballero backpedaling to push over a deflected drive, but with 9 minutes to go Guardiola's team added a fourth. With Palace temporarily down to 10 men, with Ward off the field receiving treatment for a broken nose, Yaya Toure played a racking ball out to the right flank for Zabaleta, and with the Palace defence stretched, he found Sterling in space to slide the ball into the net. And in injury time, further salt was rubbed into the wound when Kevin De Bruyne delivered a delicious free kick into the box that was begging to be dispatched, and Otamendi obliged by flying in and converting a diving header to condemn Palace to their biggest Premier League loss since August 1994. Crystal Palace capitulated with little more than the whimper on Saturday, losing to Manchester City 5-0 thanks to a second-half performance that lacked any characteristics previously inhibited in the recent wins. Now for some positives from the game. Wilfried Zaha was arguably the only player on the field who didn't show Manchester City the respect that the rest of his teammates gave them. Now for some negatives from the game. You can mitigate Palace's lack of defensive depth, but their lack of backbone or pride in this performance was concerning. The final 2 goals were essentially walk-ins for City, as Palace just allowed them to clear the paths to goal. It was a deeply concerning performance given that the danger of relegation still looms. Crystal Palace were crushed 5-0 at a rampant Manchester City in the early lunchtime kickoff on Saturday. It was a shocking start from the Eagles as the hosts took the lead inside 120 seconds thanks to David Silva's close-range finish after Raheem Sterling got round the back to square a deep cross. Palace went into the break only a goal behind but capitulated after the break after goals from Kompany, Bruyne, Sterling and Otamendi ended the game 5-0. But what do we learn from the game? Here are 5 things. Number 1. Injuries taking their toll. While Sam Allardyce has not used injuries as an excuse for the thrashing at Manchester City, instead focusing on himself and the players who performed so poorly, it is evident that the core strength during the winning run is being sorely missed. Mamadou Sakho and James Tompkins developed an understanding in that time. Scott Dann, who would have stepped up for either of them in the team, was also joined on the sidelines by the pair. Any team missing their 3 first-choice centre-backs would struggle, and these absences have been compounded by Yohan Cabaye's injury. The playmaker has been sorely missed for his defensive and offensive contributions. Number 2. Jimmy Max looking lost. Soon after he joined, it was rumoured that Big Sam didn't know how James McArthur, so often the crucial clog in Alan Partridge's team, would fit into the team's new shape. With Luka Milivojevic slotting in the front of the back 4, Cabaye's resurgence and Jason Punchin being made captain, McArthur has found it hard to break back into the team since returning from injury. Whilst he has covered Cabaye's loss, the midfield looks disjointed and Jimmy Mack himself doesn't seem to look comfortable in a more rigid and disciplined team shape. The late bursts into the box have been reduced, his use of the ball often poorer than it has been. An energetic box-to-box midfielder he may be, the playmaker he is replacing he is not. Number 3. Slupp's versatility limiting his impact. Jeffrey Slupp was courted by a few Premier League clubs and chose Palace at a time that the club lacked options on the left side, both in defence and attack. Since then he has played at left back, left wing and now at centre back. While 25 player squads do need a degree of versatility, Slupp's impact has been limited as he has not had a significant run in one position. He and Allardyce need to define a role for the former striker, as he was when Dougie Freeman tried to sign him, else his career will fall victim to his adaptability. And Saturday's performance made it clear that his role is not at the centre of defence. Number 4. Even if Palace survive, this season needs a post-mortem. In a seesaw season, survival looked beyond the team 11 games ago, was in touching distance 3 games ago, and now, in somewhat typical Palace fashion, is going down to the last 2 games. This is not a new problem. The club ended last season on an abysmal run of form, and if we do manage to secure survival, this will prove a sense of relief and not celebration. If the club is to avoid the sort of decline seen at Sunderland, there needs to be a root and branch review of the season and the players. Saturday's result showed up many players, albeit in some new positions, for failings they had displayed in the first 2/3 of the season. Lessons must be learned to avoid any repetition. And number 5, one more crucial round. The game against Hull provides Palace with an immediate chance to redeem the heavy loss to City and in doing so secure another season of Premier League football. For all the positives during the excellent 8-game run and the dreary last 3 outings, the management, players and fans need to regroup, wipe the slate clean and get ready for the game against Hull as if it was a playoff final. The players cannot afford to carry the last 3 games into the encounter at Selhurst, and the fans have to play their part as well. Against City, the players made unforced errors from City's second onwards. The team's spirit seen slapped since Sakho's injury against Spurs. It needs to re-emerge and see us through this final stage. So now you've heard the match review, we're now going to move on to the player ratings. But before we start, don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Facebook at Crystal Palace for all the latest news. And for all you Facebook users out there, don't forget to check out our Facebook group so you can join in with discussions, read the latest news, and post your own opinion. So like I said there, if you're on social media and you do want to get in contact with us, then of course you can follow us on both Twitter and Facebook, and you can find both these pages by using the @Crystal_Palace. Now I personally would highly recommend you do follow us on both these pages because we do regularly update them with the latest news, so if you do want to keep up to date with all things Palace, then of course our social media accounts are the places to go. And you know, some of these news articles can include player and manager interviews after the game, so if you do like to hear what the manager Sam Allardyce and what the players thought about the game and what they thought about what happened in the game, then of course do give us a follow so you can get all the relevant links to videos and articles with the interviews in there. And another thing really that's been quite popular on Twitter recently is actually Twitter polls. So if you do like to get involved and vote for your opinion, vote for what you think is the best thing about the club or the best decision, or whether you think we'll win or lose a game, then of course do follow us on Twitter so it comes up in your feed, and that way you get to vote in the poll. And actually a few weeks ago there was a really interesting poll about how many points you thought we would need to stay up, and certainly this has changed. If we were to redo the poll now, certainly the numbers would have changed, but certainly there was quite a lot of different opinion and quite a lot of division in that Twitter poll. So if you do like to get involved with discussions like that, then of course, like I said, follow our Twitter page. But obviously if you're on Facebook, of course you can follow our main Facebook page, but I personally would highly recommend you do join the Facebook group. And obviously I personally would highly recommend you do follow the group, because after the game quite a lot of fans go on there to post their own opinion on about how they thought the players performed and anything they saw throughout the game. So if you are someone like myself who likes to go onto Twitter or Facebook and read what other fans had to say, then of course the Facebook group is a fantastic way for you to do so, because you go onto the Facebook group, you can read what other fans had to say about the game, about players, about refereeing decisions, and also you can post your own opinion. So if you do want to share your opinion with other fans so other fans can see it, then of course follow the Facebook group so you can share your opinion on there as well. And that's the thing, I personally like reading what other fans have to say and sharing my opinion, so I'm sure there'll be a lot of you out there listening to the podcast who also would like to share your opinion. And I'm actually a member of the group, so if you do ever want to get in contact with me, of course you can contact me on Twitter at the CPC Podcast, or you can contact me via the Facebook group. But even if you don't want to post anything from the game, if you've got some pictures from inside the ground, you want to share something that's related to Palace, maybe not about the game, or anything you do want to share about the club, then of course you can also do that on the Facebook group. But obviously, like I said at the beginning, if you do want to find any of these social media pages, then of course you can use the @Palace, or you can find all the links in the description below. Now obviously if you are listening to the podcast on YouTube, then of course you can drop a comment below the video on who you thought the best player was throughout the game, and obviously who you thought the standout player was for Palace. And this is so I can hear or I can read your opinion on how you thought the game went. And considering, you know, later on in the podcast I'll give my opinion on how I thought the game went and the performance of the players, what I want you to do in the YouTube comments, of course you can't do this on Acast or iTunes, but what I want you to do in the YouTube comments is drop a comment below about what you thought about the game, and also the player ratings. So of course I do give you my player ratings later on in the podcast, giving all of the players a rating from 1 to 10, with 1 being the worst and 10 being the best. And that's really a summary of how I thought the players performed. So what I want you to do, as well as dropping a comment below about how you thought the game went, drop a comment below with your player ratings, rating all of the players, because I've seen it on Twitter. There's quite a lot of debate about how people thought the players performed, and certainly there's probably going to be a lot of opinion and disagreements with the ratings I've got, some being maybe fair, some being maybe generous. But like I said, do comment it below, because I like to read what your opinion is, and considering you have to listen to my opinion and me rate all of the players, it'd be nice to read what you thought and whether you did agree with all of the ratings I give. And you know, this week I want you to do the same, even if you don't want to do, you know, this sort of task I'm asking you to do by listing the player ratings. Of course, drop anything below the video about one player in particular, about a refereeing decision, about the manager setup of the team. If you do want to comment anything about the game, of course do it in the YouTube comments. And now another thing really I'll also go on to talk about later on in the podcast is the man of the match, and there may be some debate about whether any players do deserve that after the loss to Man City. But certainly do comment below with the best player throughout the game as well as the player ratings. But if you do, like I said, if you do want to keep up to date with all things Palace, then don't forget to follow us on both Twitter and Facebook. But enough of that, now to move on to the player ratings. As this was such a terrible result, which I really don't know how to put into words, in this week's podcast I'm just going to give you the player ratings and a small summary of the player's performance, instead of going into detail about every player, because like I said, I don't want to talk about it again, and I really don't know how to put into words such a terrible and abysmal performance. And certainly I think them two words just completely describe and summarise the game. And you know, because of them two reasons and the fact that we got beaten 5-0 in the Premier League, I think I don't really want to talk about it, so I'm just going to really summarise the player's performance and give you a rating, because to be honest, there isn't really much to talk about the players other than the fact they were just horrendous throughout the game. But before I start, I must really say, and I've discussed this with a few people at school and also on social media, I'm not necessarily angry with the result, and that's because I knew we were going to lose. You know, Man City have got a fantastic team, you know, they've got a world-class team, they compete in the Champions League every year, you know, they're in the top 4 of the league, so they've got really good quality players there. So you know, us being in a relegation scrap, you didn't really expect us to win, and I understood that, so that's why I wasn't angry. But really, I was disappointed, and, you know, angry. People say they were angry because it was humiliating, but I don't think I was angry because, you know, I knew we were going to lose. But I was really disappointed in the fact that the players didn't show more fight, and even though, like I said, it was against one of the world's best teams, in my opinion, we should have at least tried to put a bit more effort, a bit more pride into the game, and at least, even when we were 1-0 down, even if we lost the game 3-0, if we showed a little bit more sort of intent to attack and a little bit more pride and tried to actually at least get something from the game, I'm sure we would have come away from the Etihad Stadium more happy with the result. But like I said there, I don't really know how to summarise the game, so all I'm going to do this week is just summarise the players' performance, give them a rating from 1 to 10, because, you know, like I said, I'm not angry, but I'm truly disappointed with how the players performed. But I'm going to start off in goal with Wayne Hennessy, who I'm going to give a 6. Could do nothing about either of the first 2 goals, but would have wanted to do better with De Bruyne's third, which allowed him to squirm under his body. The 4th and 5th went past him before he even started to dive. Dropped a shot at the feet of Jesus, but was let off by the offside flag, but did manage to palm away a few shots as City poured forward. Right back Joe Ward, who I'm going to give a 5. Began the game on the right of the 3 backs alongside Kelly and Slop, but was moved back to his more usual role at right back as Allardyce abandoned his plans after just 15 minutes. He found it very tough against Leroy Sané, who turned Ward inside out for plenty of the game, and then looked to have possibly broken his nose late on to cap off a miserable afternoon. Centre back Martin Kelly, who I am going to give a 5. The former Liverpool man has been superb in recent weeks, but had a really off game here, and it's becoming increasingly clear that he is at his best alongside an experienced centre-back like Sacco. A really poor header gave City an early score, and Kelly was also responsible for marking Vincent Kompany when the centre-back scored a second. A poor performance, replaced by Damien Delaney late on. Left-back Jeffrey Slop, who I am going to give a 5. Chosen initially in a back 3, then moved back to centre-back role, neither of which were truly comfortable in. It showed. Due to Palace's defensive injury crisis, Slop was asked to play on the left back of a back 3 at first, and then at centre back alongside Kelly in a back 4, and it was clear why he has never played there before in his career. Made a vital clearance to deny Gabriel Jesus, making it 2-0 after 20 minutes, but struggled for a lot of the game. Left back Patrick Van Aanholt, who I am going to give a 5. Poor in defence, poor in attack. Lacked composure on the ball and repeatedly handed City possession. Started off at left wing back before going back to left back, but had a really off game. He cleared off the line from Sterling after Hennessy had palmed the shot into the City man's path in the first half, but found it really hard against De Bruyne, Sané and Sterling all game. Wasn't quick enough to stop Sterling, making it 4-0. Centre midfield James McArthur, who I am going to give a 4. Doesn't look match fit, and his decision making showed it too. Spent too much of the game chasing shadows. His only real involvement in the first half was getting nutmegged by Leroy Sané. It's becoming increasingly clear that the squad isn't up to the standard that Kompany usually sets in the centre of midfield. Defensive midfielder Luka Milivojevic, who I am going to give a 5. Another game where the Serbian really looked to miss his defensive midfield partner in Johan Kompany. He was often dragged out of position, and between him and Van Aanholt completely lost company for City's second goal. Booked late on for a desperate foul on De Bruyne, completely overrun in the midfield and was replaced by Matthew Flamini with 25 minutes left. Was alongside Zaha one of Palace's best players. The captain Jason Puncheon, who I am going to give a 5. His worst performance in a long time. Palace's strong midfield core collapsed and Puncheon was part of that problem. Poor passes and a lack of energy hurt Palace. Nearly set up Benteke with a lovely curled cross before Clichy got his head to nick it away, but that was about it to sum up the Palace's captain's attacking intent. Found himself mostly squeezed further back to help his teammates try and break up City's attacks. Winger Wilfried Zaha, who I am going to give a 7. The only true positive performer. Showed a lot of intent going forward and was the only player to really have a go at City. The Palace winger found opportunities to run at Fernandinho, who was slotting in at right back for City, but they were limited. He did break into the box early on and went down under the challenge of Toure looking for a penalty, but it was rightly waved away. Not a game to remember. Winger Andros Townsend, who I am going to give a 6. Started the game playing at right wing back and did not look comfortable at all, losing Sterling for the opening goal. After about 15 minutes he was told to go back to his usual position at right wing, and ironically his defensive work got better after that. Despite carrying an Achilles injury, he did well in the first half. Was taken off for Chong Eun Lee after 55 minutes. Striker Christian Benteke, who I am going to give a 6, was denied a great-headed goal by a fantastic save from Caballero in the first half, and that was his only real clear-cut chance. Another frustrating afternoon for Palace's lone target man. Now for the subs. Chong Lee a 6. Replaced Townsend with just over half an hour left and worked hard but had little impact. Matthew Flamini no rating. Came on from Milivojevic for the final 25 minutes as Allardyce looked to rest his players ahead of a big game next weekend against Hull. Damien Delaney no rating. A late cameo to replace Martin Kelly at centre-back and put in one very good challenge in the box on Sunday but was booked shortly after. So now I've heard my player ratings and what I thought about the players' performances. I'm now going to give you a small summary of the game, and like I said at the beginning, I must reiterate this point. I'm not necessarily angry with the result because, like I said, I knew we were going to lose because, you know, City have got one of the best teams in the league and probably in the world, considering they compete in the Champions League every year. But I'm very disappointed in the fact that the team didn't even put up a fight. And, you know, I've said this already, even though they're one of the best teams in the world, you still can't really accept when your team get beaten 5-0 and it didn't show any fight throughout the game. And I said this at the beginning, even if we lost, say, maybe 3-0, if we actually put some sort of pride and we tried to get something from the game, whether it be, you know, a consolation goal, but we didn't have that sort of passion, that sort of drive in the game, and that's why I was disappointed. I'm not angry because I knew we were going to lose anyway, but I'm disappointed in the fact that we were humiliated 5-0. But, you know, I've got sort of a few points here, really just to summarise the game, and I've seen, you know, a few people talk about this on Twitter, and I personally think this is a really good way to summarise the game. You know, we can mitigate and discuss about Palace's lack of defensive depth on the bench, but to be honest, the backbone or the pride in this performance was concerning. So like I said, yes, we have lots of injuries. You know, we've lost our 3 first-choice centre-backs. We've lost Yohan Kompany in the midfield. So we haven't really got a lot of depth. But you can't just blame it on that because, like I said, even if we lost 3-0, even if we lost 3-0 and we had pride, I would have been fine with that. But in this team, we didn't have that backbone. We didn't have that sort of solidity in the team. We didn't have that pride. And obviously, it was quite concerning considering you want your players to at least try and get something from a difficult game. And it showed against Chelsea, it showed against Arsenal, it showed against Liverpool that even though their teams are way better than us, if we can have the pride and we have that sort of drive, we can go on to win the game. And that's not to say I thought we were going to win against City, that's just saying that we've proved it this season. Why couldn't we do it again? And to be honest, you know, we talked about the lack of pride towards the end of the game. As soon as the last 2 goals really were walk-ins for City, so it just showed that towards the end of the game it was already 3-0, so we sort of gave up. And to be honest, Palace just allowed City to take the ball and they just gave them paths to score, and that's why we went on to concede goals. The fact that sort of loss of concentration, that loss of pride, you know, that's towards the end of the game, that obviously meant that City had 2 more easy goals to score. And to be honest, it's really concerning performance. You know, I said I'm not angry, but I'm disappointed. But it's really concerning the fact that the danger of relegation still looms. If we don't win our next 2 games, or we don't get at least 1 point, we can get relegated. So it's really concerning the fact that we just gave away a game like that and didn't even have pride. But hopefully against Hull and hopefully against Man United as well, we can at least put in a little bit more sort of pride and passion and hopefully get something out of the game, because it's really concerning now. It is truly squeaky bum time, so we need to try and at least get something from them games and restore that sort of pride and that sort of commitment into the team. And obviously Sam Allardyce, I'm going to talk a little bit about the manager. You know, he went with this sort of unfamiliar 5 at the back, so he tried to sort of park the bus as such. And, you know, you brought in Jeffrey Slubb instead of Damien Delaney to give a little bit more pace to the back line. And, you know, it was a big move from him, but I think, you know, it was a good tactical move considering we needed pace to cope with City. And towards the beginning of the game, we could see it wasn't working. And obviously, that sort of tactic, the fact that we had the 3 centre-backs, gave City lots of space, and they went on to concede. We went on to concede the first goal really early on. And then even in the second half, where we changed the formation, went back to a back 4 as opposed to a back 5. You know, we tried to sort of put pressure on City. We did recover well towards the end of the first half, but we didn't carry that on into the second half. And then the second half was 4-0 basically. If you take away the first half goal, 4-0 in the second half. It was absolutely shambolic, and certainly I don't think we can blame too much on the manager, because at the end of the day, the players have gone out there and performed and not really, you know, adjusted to his tactics. But we've got to put a little bit of blame on Allardyce for not sort of motivating the team enough and not maybe making a substitute at half-time just to solidify the defence and hopefully, you know, maybe keep it at 1-0. But instead, we obviously got humiliated 5-0. But like I said here, you know, really, it's really concerning now the fact that we can still get relegated, but hopefully with Allardyce having a week's training with the players, he can get their sort of commitment and their sort of passion back, and their fight, and hopefully against Hull, against Man United, we can get this one extra point that we need for safety. After such a terrible result, no one deserves the Man of the Match award, but mentions must go to Wilfried Zaha, Andros Townsend, Luka Milivojevic and Wayne Hennessy for at least trying throughout the game and for being the least worst players throughout. But in contrast to this, according to WhoScored.com stats, these were our best players throughout the game. Wilfried Zaha, Andros Townsend, Christian Benteke, Luka Milivojevic, Patrick Van Aanholt and Wayne Hennessy. They had scores of 6.1, 6.2, 6.3 and 6.4 respectively. So now you've heard my match report, player rankings and my man of the match. That concludes this week's podcast. Now I've got an exclusive interview with Sam Allardyce, Martin Kelly and Jeffrey Slutt following the game.
Martin, you've had a lot of very good results against big teams recently. Why was today so much tougher though?
I think, conceding the early goal didn't help. I think Man City were on their game today. The formation we played at the start, we changed back to a 4 at the back. It's been a difficult day for us today, and we're just all really disappointed in the changing rooms.
The manager said he switched from a 5 back to a back 4 early because the players didn't look comfortable. Did you feel uncomfortable in that initial shape?
I don't think we've worked on it enough, to be honest. We're trying to put out a squad that would suit the game with the injuries that we've got. So it was always going to be difficult against a side as well as Man City, who, as I said, was on their game today. It was no excuse to concede that many, but football's cruelty sometimes, and just all disappointed.
Where does this leave you? Are you looking already towards a massive game next weekend, or hoping for a result or two today that could actually see you safe, by tonight?
Yeah, I mean, when we look at it on a whole, we look at the games coming up and what have been previously, and we've got points where people would have written us off, and then we've dropped a couple there and there where we should have probably got points. So we'll be looking to dust ourselves down and go at it again next Sunday, with us knowing that we'll have the fans there right behind us, and we're going to have to stand up and try our best.
What was it about Man City that made them so hard to play against today?
I think everyone knows that Man City are our top side, and they needed the points just as much as we did. But I mean, when you come to a place like this and play as open at times as we were, you get punished.
Do you think the early goal made it so difficult after that?
Yeah, of course. The early goal almost killed us at the beginning, but I thought we actually played our ways back into the game the first half. So, it's actual disappointment to go out the second half and actually concede all those goals with how hard we worked first half. But, like I said, you come to a place like this, when you're not at it, you get punished.
You played centre-back today. Is it a position you've played before?
I've played in a back 3 before, during the game, but it's something new again. But, in the end of the day, it's a team game, and, when you're not at it as a team, you get results like that happen here.
What's the key for you lot now as a team? Just try and forget about this result and look ahead to next weekend against Hull.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when things like this happen, you try and put it behind you as quick as you can and look at the positives and obviously move towards playing Hull in a massive game.
Sam, unfortunate defeat today. Was it always going to be an uphill struggle conceding so early on?
Well, when they actually scored, yes, I thought that was going to be the case. But our recovery from that, I thought, was very, very good up to half-time. But, for me, when we went out in the second half and just, again, allowed them to score a very, very simple goal that should have been avoided, you cannot come to this place and gift the opposition the 2-goal start. And after that, we really lost our shape and lost the way we normally play in terms of making life difficult for the opposition, because we felt like we had to do more to try and go and score. And when you do that against Man City players, they get more and more space, and with the talent they got, they punish you more. But for me, all 5 goals were defensively our fault, not the great work of Manchester City today, which is very disappointing for me and for the players.
How much of the injuries to your centre half have they had a bearing on the result today?
Well, yeah, I mean, we played Jeffrey Schlupp at centre half today because of the small agility and attacking prowess of Manchester City's front four. De Bruyne, Sterling, Sané, Jesus up front, all under 6 foot, all sharp, quick, good movement. So we had to try and cope with that. So we played Schluppy, who's strong and quick in that position. And like I said, recovering the first half, yes, but second half, midfield did protect the back four very well. It just never happened today for us. We have to accept that. We're disappointed with the way we've performed. We have to accept that, and we have to make sure we put it to bed and don't have any legacy going into the Hull City game next Saturday and get back to what we know we are, and that is a very, very good team when we all play together well.
So there you have it. Now you've heard what Sam Allardyce, Martin Kelly and Jeffrey Schlupp had to say after the game. That concludes this week's podcast for the game against Man City. But make sure to come back next week for a post-match review of the game against Hull City. So thanks for listening, and remember to up the Palace.